What's up everybody, Steven Z Killer here. It's time to bring you a new reaction video. But before that, 75% of you guys watching right now are not subscribed. This means two things. You're either brand new to the channel or returning. And I do hope that this video gets you to hit that subscribe button today. Last year, we didn't hit our goal of 400,000 subscribers by the end of 2024. We almost got there, and we were so close to 100,000 new subscribers in that year. But I still need more people to join and subscribe to get my channel to hit 1 million subscribers. This upcoming year, the new goal is 500,000 subscribers, and I need you to hit that subscribe button today so we can hit it this year. I know we can do it. What's up everybody, Steven Z Killer here bringing another reaction, and today we're checking out some more of the amazing Digital Circus stuff. So recently the episode 5 dropped by Glitch Productions. It was absolutely hilarious. It was a great episode, and I will say, if you haven't seen my reaction, go check it out. It is live on my channel right now. Because we're going to be diving into some videos that might be breaking down and of course have spoilers if you haven't seen the episode. So go check it out. If you guys want my review, my ideas and stuff like that, I will mention them at the end of this video, of course. But if you guys want to see what I thought in the moment of watching the episode, go check out that reaction. But today we're checking out Cartoon Universe with two videos that just came out. One reviewing, I'm assuming reviewing the episode. It's Jax abstracted his best friend, ? The craziest Digital Circus reveal yet. So this was recommended to me a few times in some comments. I've reacted to this channel before when it comes to some of the other stuff like Hazbin Hotel, Hell of a Boss, stuff like that. But this is actually my first time checking out this channel for anything Digital Circus related. So I'm excited for that. I'm going to hit the like button, show my support. I'm already subscribed to the channel. And of course, if you guys have other suggestions you want me to tackle in the future, or any other channels out there that you want me to watch for reviews, breakdowns, all that stuff, you can suggest them down below in the comments and or post in the reaction idea section. Second video that caught my eye that just got uploaded yesterday, how each character got trapped in the Digital Circus. So this dropped nearing 200,000 views in a day, which is amazing. I'm going to smash the like button on this as well. I'd like to see more of a breakdown on that. We did kind of get some backstory on characters, but we never really got the info on how they ended up there. We just know Pomni, in a sense, from episode 1, the pilot. She just remembered putting on a headset, but she doesn't remember how or why she went to where she was and what actually happened prior. But she does have memory of her past, her age, what she did on her own time to make herself feel a little bit more happier, her job prior to being trapped in the Digital Circus, and the same thing can be said about like the other characters. They have memories, well, except for Kinger, they have memories before the Digital Circus, but not close to the moment probably to when they got trapped in it, or maybe there was some like Easter eggs or something I didn't see. So we're gonna check out this video as well. I'm interested in the dissecting, theories, lore, anything like that when it comes to the Digital Circus. And in the future, when there's more videos out about Digital Circus you want me to react to, music, animation, etc., let me know about it. Anyways, let's get into this video and enjoy it right now.
Episode 5 of the amazing Digital Circus was probably the biggest backstory drop we've had so far, and while there were many hints that this was meant to be a Ragatha episode, and we did get some confirmations and new insights into her character, you just know I have to talk about Jax first and the crazy.
It didn't feel like just a Ragatha episode. Yeah, I was about to say, there was definitely a lot of Jax in this.
Crazy little tidbits we got from his story. Particularly the idea that Jax actually had a friend inside the Digital Circus, who many fans believe is this frog here, who Gooseworks apparently named Ribbit. Now, episode 5 opened not that different from episode 4, with the gang opting for an adventure from the suggestion box instead of one of Kane's torture experiments presented as a video game. This led to an episode where the gang does a bunch of different adventures in a row, speedrunning running some fun ideas instead of stretching each out over its own episode. This was actually a little bit disappointing for me, not because any of these sucked, in fact, they were all really great.
I've never seen this outfit for him.
So the real issue I had is that any one of these would have also made a great episode on their own. To be honest, the themed adventures so far haven't been that fun for me, so having all the good ones pushed in...
Actually, here's a good question. Out of the 5 episodes out as of right now, in order, comment down below your favorite. And doesn't mean whatever's in last place is a bad episode. I'm just saying, what would you prefer as your definitive, like, number 1 favorite episode so far to least favorite episode, but it was still a good episode kind of situation? I would say episode 3 is still my favorite. Out of all the episodes, episode 3 is number 1. I would say after that would be, for me, probably the pilot. I'll give it the second place. Then I would actually say this episode is number 3. Episode 4 will be in 4th place. And episode 2 is probably last. Like I said, none of them are bad. I think when it came to the enjoyment of the episodes, I'd probably put them in that order. So...
into this one episode is a bit concerning, but part of what made each of these so good was how they were all able to show different sides of the same issue going on in this one episode, so that may be where a lot of this came from. There's a lot to talk about in the next few videos, but for this one, the most important thing we learned through all these adventures was about Jax. Jax, of course, has been stuffing the suggestion box with terrible ideas, hoping to be able to use them against the other circus members. Such as their first adventure, which is a safari game where everyone else is an animal and Jax gets to be
any adventure that gives Jax a gun is scary.
Really sets up what Jax is all about, and honestly, I think it might even hint at the ideas that I'm going to present later in this video that Jax is ultimately responsible for his best friend abstracting. The premise of Jax's character really is that he likes to exploit things to make life worse for everyone else.
That's kind of how I felt at the end of this episode too. Like, I feel like I know where they're going with, because Jax is acting the way he is acting towards everybody else. It's to prevent them from abstracting instead of just letting things go by, happen, and then over time his friend abstracted when he feels like he could have done something to prevent it.
Him some serious laughs when others are suffering because of it. His primary victim right now is Gangle, with everyone else just tolerating Jax and his evil behavior until he goes too far with her. The big twist for this episode...
you know what? I didn't even think about that. The reason he probably focuses on her is probably because he's worried she is the most likely... even though Kinger is pretty messed up in the head, he probably sees her as possibly the next one to abstract based off of her mental state.
At least with the Jax subplot, was the way the gang found to turn his behavior back on him. For this series of adventures, Kanan made a voting system that let the characters decide what they do not like, but they were also able to use this function to force changes onto everyone else. Jax tried to use this against the others as well, but nothing he proposed would get voted for by the others because of course no one really likes the way he treats them. Meanwhile, when Zooble proposes
although there was one vote for that Pomni at least sided with Jax on,
becomes forcibly vegan, everyone agrees. This was funny but really inconsequential, as they don't really eat food in the Digital Circus and it's all just pixels. But it was a joke being turned onto Jax, and that was what really mattered here. This escalated with the gang voting to put Jax in a maid's outfit, something I remember seeing crazy artwork for on the internet long before this episode, which seems so bizarre back then, but here we are. Jax, of course, is extremely embarrassed by this, as I would be too if I was caught in my maid uniform, and the moment of his evil clone commenting on how he looks is absolutely unhinged. All of this, of course, got Jax worked up so much that I actually thought there might be an issue with him in this episode. Jax threatened to kill people more times in this episode than I remember ever happening before, and with the whole theme of the episode being about Jax having his own logic turned against him, I think it showed what Jax's real issue is. Jax in this episode kind of revealed that he has control issues, not just issues controlling himself, but also the need to feel in control of others. This is something that's really been present throughout the entire series, but here, when his own logic is turned against him, we can really see...
That's still a pretty fucked up thing what he did to Ragatha there, throwing in the boiling oil. Ooh!
just how much it bugs him. In the Digital Circus and also in real life, these jokes are one way to control other people. It's not like school where you have to be intelligent enough to apply yourself, or some sort of workout routine where you have to exercise and be good at that. It's something you can use against just about anyone to knock them off their pedestal and bring them down to your level, to a place where they're not willing to fight back, and thus you're the one in control of them. It's not just that Jax has the willingness to be mean, however, which he accomplishes by simply pushing Gangle over in the pilot and other simple acts of abuse like that. What gives Jax the upper hand here is that he's naturally conniving, looking for ways to exploit the rules instead of following them. This is something required to move beyond just physical bullying, with mental manipulation and these sort of digital pranks at everyone else's expense being ways to do that. In episode 2, at the Candy Kingdom for instance, Jax could have just used his own body to stretch across to the other criminal car besides theirs, but he chose to use Pomni instead and then casually walked all over her. This was a brilliant way to show the audience how Jax sees himself, as someone who doesn't have to put up with the things that everyone else does because he can find a hack that uses everyone else to his own advantage. It's because of this that Jax is likely convinced himself that he's smarter than everyone else, even if only—
Also, there was a reference in the last episode that went right over my head. The one in the bar that Jax said when he was like, oh, I developed cancer and my junkie student or whatever. It was a Breaking Bad reference. I didn't catch that during my initial reaction. I don't know why that popped in my head. I wanted to say it, but shout out to the people who pointed that out in the comments.
In the ways that matter to him. The problem, however, is that this behavior doesn't work everywhere. In a system like school, you basically have to look out for yourself, but when it comes to a place of official employment, there's only so much you can do to another person before you're going to be terminated and asked to leave. It's easy to imagine Jax doing what he's done to Gangle at some sort of school growing up, but this is precisely the reason why in episode 4, Gangle has everyone going to the fast food place where she gets to be the manager. Here, even in the Digital Circus, even with Jax, no one is able to contradict her authority. This is played mostly for laughs in the show, but in real life as an ongoing job, this would be extremely difficult for Jax to maintain, not being able to exploit the rules because there's a real authority who is keeping track of him, such as the manager Gangle. And to me, that's where this whole Jax story really starts to get insane. While the other characters gave their backstories in this episode, Jax only gave lies, with Zooble noticing that Jax's backstory he started spewing was a reference to some existing story in a movie or TV show, though I actually don't know what it is for the record, as I suck at that sort of thing.
Like I said, I didn't catch it either, but if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, it's a fantastic show, and I've watched through Breaking Bad at least once, maybe twice, maybe? No, I don't even think I've watched it through twice. But I do have to say, it was a fantastic show, and it just caught me off guard. I didn't realize it, and people pointed that out in the comments of my reaction.
Regardless, the only information we got for Jax came not from one of these narrated backstories like the others gave, but from little hints from the other characters like Ragatha and brief flashes of Jax that allude to his history. This flash I'm talking about is, of course, the strange scene where Jax is running through a dark hall and stops in front of a door. These doors are used in the show for the character rooms that we see in the hallway of the Digital Circus. Rooms that only human characters like our main cast are supposed to have. The way Jax stops in front of his door clearly indicates that he has a connection to this character, who is a frog in the game, but like Jax as a rabbit, would have been human before the Digital Circus. And with everyone else giving their stories that hint at how they got into the circus instead of narrating things that happened since entering the circus, I have to think that this image of Jax at the door does the same thing ultimately. With Pomni, she simply explained that she liked exploring abandoned buildings and then posting videos about it on YouTube. When Pomni's talking about this, Jax actually says that this would explain how she ended up in the Digital Circus, hinting at what we learned from the end of the pilot, which is that this video game seems to be running on an old computer in some sort of abandoned office building.
That's another thing is I was so confused by the moment that he said YouTuber. I'm like, wait a second. The computer, the headset design, it looked really old. Like I forget what it was called, but there was a really old like red and black VR headset from like long ago. Like it reminded me of that kind of situation. And I'm like, oh, and then now this. Wait, YouTuber? What? YouTube's a thing? So this is taking place way after like 2005?
Would have been the perfect place for Pomni to explore in her spare time, and when she saw this video game running on an old PC, there was no reason to think it would do anything harmful to her, like locking her in the game. Similar things likely happen to the other characters, but that doesn't mean they all have to have the exact same explanation. Jax in particular is the kind of character who may—
I actually just realized something. Out of every character in this episode, Kinger didn't get much. Like, we got development on everybody else besides Kinger. Like, he's the only... Although he did have a... Episode 3 was completely all for him. But... still, I think a little extra would have been nice.
We know a lot about this sort of exploit before entering the game, as he likes finding exploits and issues that he can bend to his advantage. Before even entering the Digital Circus himself, he may have already been well aware of the malfunction this game had in its hardware, perhaps explaining why the building itself was abandoned. But why would both he and a friend get trapped there, especially if there was only one headset with this particular issue? A similar question could be asked for Kinger and his wife Queenie, and maybe there are multiple headsets plugged in that can be used by these characters. But regardless of that, the theorist in me says that the reason Jax and his friend are both trapped in here isn't because they both accidentally got sucked into the game using different headsets. And instead, I think this was exactly what Jax wanted to happen. When asked which of the Digital Circus characters most deserved to be trapped there, Gooseworks very clearly said that it was absolutely Jax. And if I had to guess, Jax's friend may not even have been his first victim. After learning about what this video game malfunction could do, Jax seems like the kind of person to lure people he hated into the circus. This would allow him to take the people that he just couldn't get the upper hand over in real life into a space where he was basically their god, especially from the outside of the game before he entered it himself. This could have started in his teen years and gone on into...
I forget sometimes he does break the fourth wall while staring at the camera and stuff. I forgot about that.
Adulthood, with him just bringing in different people to this building and telling them that he found this amazing video game they could play just for them to end up trapped and tortured. However, I think at some point to Jax, the Digital Circus might have looked more like fun than the real world. Something the show is exploring a lot is the seriousness of adulthood and the kinds of careers that people are expected to enter in order to try and take care of themselves in a world that is falling apart. These are soul-draining jobs for very little pay, all seemingly to make people higher up in the chain of command feel better about themselves. In episode 4, we saw that Jax seems to struggle with this about as much as everyone else, including Gangle, who seems to have based her entire view on her life on her time working at one of these fast food joints. It wasn't the happiest time of her life and was often very miserable, but it was a time that defined her in many ways, taking her away from the person that she wanted to be growing up and turning her into something that her parents were proud of and which gave her some sort of validation fix, despite it being a fast food hell. The difference between Gangle and Jax is that Gangle tends to succumb to her environment, whether that means staying on the lowest end of the totem pole because that's the only place she can be, or moving up if she has the chance to be something like a manager. Jax, however, doesn't have what it takes to assimilate in order to be a part of a system, so all he can do is try to manipulate the system so that it gives him what he wants. And when other people's profits are at risk, that's something that you just can't do very easily. So the real difference between Gangle and Jax is that Jax is always looking for a way to exploit and a way to get out, and the Digital Circus may have been just that for him. The Digital Circus...
I see where they're going with this.
is kind of the perfect escape for someone who hates the world but loves hanging out online. It's a digital world where everything is meant to be fun, even if there's an obvious exhaustion point where that stops being the case. For someone like Jax, who was a young person just wanting to have fun, entering adulthood and being forced to get a real job, this probably would have been seen as a better alternative. A place where he could be forever young, and with that, forever in a video game where he's treated like a kid. With Jax already knowing so much about the
But he probably over time started to regret his decision.
Exploits from trapping others in the game, I think he would see it as a paradise to live out the rest of his existence, instead of being an aging human in the fast food industry or some other such job where he had no control. The only thing really holding him back would be loneliness, as up to this point, if this theory is correct, the only other people in there would be the people that he trapped in there against their will, people he already hated on the outside and who he wanted to see suffer. A lot of these people would likely have abstracted by the time that Jax decided that he wanted to enter the game himself, but he still wouldn't want to be alone, and that's where I have to imagine this mysterious frog friend would come in. As terrible as Jax is, especially as a teenager, he likely had at least one friend, and a lot of the episode has characters like Ragatha alluding to this one friend being gone, and him being gone because of the way that Jax behaves. So here's my theory on what I think actually happened. After dealing with the expectations of becoming an adult and failing miserably, I think Jax would try to lure a friend into the Digital Circus by just treating it like a normal video game that he had found and enjoyed. When they entered, they would have a lot of fun at first, but when it was
Then his friend wanted to leave, and then his friend found out he was trapped, and later went and got abstracted because of the stress and everything else.
time to leave, they would find themselves trapped, and Jax would simply play like he was shocked, even though he'd seen it happen before with victims of his own even. From here, I think Jax would play things like he does in this episode, insisting that his friend, like the others, takes the game too seriously and should just be trying to have fun. The only reason this is fun for Jax, however, is that he feels in control of it, and his frog friend is not going to have that feeling. Instead, he'd be like everyone else, like Pomni, trying to figure out how the hell they got stuck there and of course trying to get out. Jax would know from seeing others struggle that it's useless and can even lead to you abstracting, but there would be very little he could say to actually comfort his friend and make him enjoy it the way that Jax was.
Without him like admitting that he is the reason his friend's in here and he did it on purpose. Yeah, okay. Alright.
This would have been a choice that Jax made after a long period of time contemplating. Something that even he probably didn't take too lightly. But his friend never had that opportunity or choice and instead would feel like he was trapped there against his will. At some point, to try and comfort his friend, Jax may even have to admit what he did to him. But instead of this making his friend feel better and embrace life in the Digital Circus as forever young best friends,
him possibly telling his friend the truth could have caused the abstraction. His mind could have just, he felt betrayed and angry and maybe it led to abstraction once he heard from Jax. That could be a huge thing and also reason why Jax keeps to himself and doesn't let people normally, until this episode, let people know how he's feeling and stuff. He always hides it.
This would be the emotional push that the frog friend needed in order to abstract himself, turning him into one of the mindless monsters that Kane has no choice but to put in the basement. The scary part would be that the others seem to know the basics of this story, but not what really happened and how they got there. Zooble made it clear that they knew Jax was lying about his earthly life and the backstory that he tried to spin after all, but Ragatha seemed to know exactly where to dig with Jax when she alluded to him only having a friend once before. This would also really explain why Jax can't take abstraction seriously either. Not that he doesn't get serious-faced when he sees a funeral for Kaufmo, but he can't bring himself to hold a funeral for Kaufmo, as that would be admitting that his friend is dead as well. And that would make Jax his killer.
Shit, I didn't even
hopes
think
to
about
fix
that.
the abstracted monstrosities, and Jax
probably in his head he's like he can probably figure out a way to possibly get his friend unabstracted and freed if
likely maintains in his head for his own sanity that one day Kane will bring his friend back. But even if Kane is successful, which I don't think he will be, that won't fix the fact that they're all trapped
Kane's
in
slowly
this video
breaking
game.
too.
Now, this was an absolutely amazing banger of an episode in my opinion, and quite possibly the best so far. But that tends to be the case in these indie miniseries epics. Each episode just brings us closer and closer to a dramatic endgame, and thus each episode becomes more intense in different ways as they shake away the humor and reach a place that is just too devastating to actually be funny. Jax tricking a friend into the game and then accidentally getting him abstracted is definitely that kind of devastating place, but this is only the halfway point of the season, and I have to imagine it's only going to get even more insane. I mentioned earlier how uncomfortable I felt at Jax threatening to kill people so often in this episode, and I honestly was worried that the big dramatic ending would be something like Jax actually getting his revenge and pushing someone else to abstraction. There was even a moment in that maid's uniform where I was worried Jax would be the one to abstract himself, and to be honest, maybe that's what they're really setting up here. Until now, I had always thought that the show would culminate in Jax getting someone else to abstract and seeing the horrors that he wrought upon the Digital Circus, but it's really starting to look like everyone else is just getting tired of him. Even Ragatha seemed to go for the cold-blooded kill with him, and her apology for it felt like another attempt to make him feel worse, even if she was actually kind of sorry. This episode explored the idea that Ragatha's mother set high expectations for her that had her behaving more politely than the other characters in the show. When she does get frustrated, she's treated like this is wrong and out of character for her, and her apology did seem like a way of acknowledging that she'd done bad. But in doing so, she also reminded Jax that he had done bad too, and that what she feels guilty about is insanely innocent compared to what Jax feels guilty about, which is essentially murder. And with all that in mind, it feels like the episodes to come will just have Jax getting worse and worse until he finally reaches his own breaking point, learning perhaps what he had been doing to other people, but perhaps this time the others will be able to save him. I'd really like to see the others like Gangle rise and push back on Jax in more interesting ways in the episodes that come, before Jax finally realizes that he's not in control at all, and that really he's put himself into one of the most limiting prisons of all time, convincing himself that he's its master or its god simply because he holds all of the keys. And of course, along the way, I think this story has to tie in with what's happening to Kane, the other control freak who
I was about to say, we need to bring up a little bit of that, and this
circus at the end of this episode. But for more on that, be sure to subscribe here as well as over on our TikTok if you use that, as we'll be putting out more videos soon talking about Kane and this NPC. And if you haven't joined the Cartoon Universe Discord server, you should consider joining this weekend, as we're holding a special contest.
If you guys want me to check out the
$30
NPC stuff,
Amazon
I'll definitely have to check out
just
those videos
your
in the
own
future.
Little room in our server. Right now, we're partnering with Hideout for a room building contest right in the server. Hideout is a Discord activity in beta testing that can be described as a mix between Habbo Hotel and Club Penguin, but right inside of your text channels. Basically, it's a little video game within Discord where you can create pixel art virtual versions of yourself and customize your own room to your heart's desire. We want to help the Hideout team test the new build mode and collect feedback before a wider release, and that's why we're holding a room building contest with cash prizes and in-game rewards for creativity and
if you're interested in that,
and
you guys want to check out that stuff, check out the link in the description for the original video, check out their Discord and stuff. Alright, let's get into the next video, which is how each character got trapped in the Digital Circus. I am intrigued on seeing where this goes, and if you guys want me to react to the other videos that drop later this week, or at some point that involve some other theories, ideas, and whatnot, let me know.
Episode 5 of The Amazing Digital Circus was an amazing lore dump for all of our characters, where we got to fill in a lot of the blanks and how they ended up in this game. So let's talk about their characters, their lives back when they were human, and how each of them seemed to end up in this strange building where this video game was running on a computer. My name is Deep Cut. People keep saying it's gay that my nickname is Deep in the Box, and let's dive into it. Now, there was this misunderstanding early on from me and a lot of people actually, that the characters had their memories erased when they entered the circus. But more and more, each episode confirms that this is not true. And the only thing they don't seem to remember are their actual names. That detail probably isn't some huge lore twist either, and it's more likely just a creative decision to let us have names like Ragatha and Pomni instead of boring names like Michael or Bob. And I want to believe that Bob is canonically Pomni's real name. Now, for some reason, up until now, most of the characters have been keeping their past to themselves. This is probably just insecurity, because I mean, like, if I was trapped in this kind of cartoon hell, I probably wouldn't be casually talking about my dead-end job or failed art degree. But at the same time, you'd think at least one of them would want to try and figure out if their stories were connected. What if one of them got lost in this game and another person came into the building trying to find them and ended up lost in the game as well? What if one of them is actually responsible for making the game? But no one really seemed to want to talk about that until now. Part of that is built into the story of the episode, which really emphasizes that the characters never really have a chance.
Yeah, because if people go missing, they'll try to track you down, and that could lead to more people getting trapped inside the Digital Circus, because they find your last location and they see this and they go, oh, what is this? Maybe this has some information. They put this on and see, something like that.
Just breathe. And when they do, they're basically just pretending to sleep in their rooms to avoid another adventure with Kane. While some characters like Zooble will just sit these out, the rest of the gang keeps going on these in order to placate Kane and seemingly stop him from falling apart and just making things worse for them. Despite this being many adventures,
well, not a lot of them know about that besides Zooble.
Calm, quiet spaces that were developed for it allowed for the characters to actually just relax and have a chance to get to know each other. And it honestly makes me wonder if Kane has kept them so around the clock busy since each of them has gotten here that they really just haven't had a chance to talk like this before. Now, when it comes to the characters' backstories, the most important is obviously Pomni's as our main character. With Pomni being the one I would say that we authentically learned the most about in this episode. We got fun facts and implications about other characters as well, but Pomni's story gave us actual information about how she ended up in the game. This wasn't something to do with her job like a lot of people suspected, as Pomni just worked as an accountant for a supermarket chain, keeping in line with the theme of these characters mostly having rather mundane jobs that are controlled by corporations. According to Pomni, before getting trapped in the circus, she would get bored with her job and seek thrills. Pomni was into what we call urban exploring, which is where you enter abandoned buildings and simply explore them. This is something I have a fascination with myself, but can't bring myself to do because I actually kind of just hate touching things in general. I was that kid growing up who couldn't focus when his hands even had just a little bit of dust on them when playing outside. It's not even a germ thing, like I'm not a germaphobe in particular, it's just bad sensory feelings. And if you've seen those urban explorer videos on YouTube, you know it's often in buildings that have fallen apart, haven't been cleaned in years, and have all sorts of mold and other such things growing in them. It's definitely not the hobby that I expected someone like Pomni to have. Honestly, it seems way more like something Jax would do. But Pomni actually did this as a hobby on YouTube apparently, filming herself exploring these places and posting it online for others to see. That part was a fun detail for her character, but the exploring abandoned buildings was something that actually tells us a lot about how the characters got here in the show. Until now, we've had no idea about anything in the real world really. We didn't even know if the Digital Circus game was still being played around the world, or if it had been discontinued as a whole because of this issue of players getting trapped being played.
The reason it looks so dirty and stuff is the computer she used was in an abandoned building
Around the world, or if it had been discontinued as a whole because of this issue of players getting trapped in the game. In the pilot, we did see outside of the computer that the game is being run on, showing what looks like an abandoned office building. Previously, there had been a lot of theories that Pomni was someone connected to the creator of the game, perhaps even the granddaughter of the creator coming in to try and fix it. But her backstory here gives the impression that she really just stumbled upon this building after searching many buildings before it, and then found a cool video game that she thought she would try out. Finding a cool video game already running on a computer there likely seemed innocent enough, so Pomni would have just put the headset on and not really think much about it. This is very interesting, however, as it raises a bit of a question about what happens to the bodies of the people who play this game. What a lot of people want to believe is that the characters are trapped inside of the game and that their bodies are now lifeless, or at least in some sort of coma before they starve and die. If this is the case, this would indicate that someone's coming into this room and maintaining it while removing the bodies of people who have accidentally put on the helmet. It would also imply that this is someone who actually wants people to get trapped in the game, otherwise they could just simply remove the helmet or turn the game off. I imagine they want to keep the game on because there's certain characters in there that they might be related to, whoever is running this place, and leaving this game running might be the only way to keep those people alive. But if multiple people are sneaking into this building and trying on the helmet, you'd think they'd at least remove this hardware so that new people can't get stuck in the game as well. One alternative
or seal off the room
theory is that the game doesn't trap a person inside of it, but just a copy of them. Hence why they don't remember certain details like their name, even if they remember everything.
That was a theory I remember going, I think that was in the game theory video I watched a long time ago when they started to, not game theory video, it was a film theory video, but still, it was definitely part of one of their theories of it's a duplicate of the person.
Else. As the game changes your name when you enter it anyways. It would be useless information for a file to contain. So if someone isn't removing the bodies after they fall into some sort of coma, then the real Pomni may have just taken off her helmet and walked away without any issues. This would explain why there's already no Pomni on the floor in the pilot when we see the office, unless someone had been waiting there for her to put it on and immediately removed her. The only issue is that Pomni immediately seems confused to be in the game instead of just enjoying it after she put on the helmet, so who knows what the truth is. Part 2, Zooble. Now, after Pomni, the character we learned the most about overtly was probably Zooble. The talking about their prior lives actually started with an adventure
we found out that
Zooble
she had 2 different
suggested,
jobs
likely
in the past.
inspired by how cathartic Gangle felt by working at a job she had in the real world. Zooble thus chose a mafia-style adventure where they would get to be a bartender and mix drinks, something they said they did as one of their jobs back before entering the circus. Jax says that this makes sense for Zooble, who replied back saying they didn't really understand what Jax was insinuating. But in my opinion, Jax actually makes a lot of sense here. This all comes down to the character of Zooble. Zooble is designed in the circus to be a mix and match toy, and this is meant to reflect how in real life they seem to have issues with their identity and with their body. This kind of issue with self-identity and body can lead to a lifestyle of body modification, and the mix and match Zooble parts reflect that. Mixing and matching drinks is something anyone can enjoy, don't get me wrong, but for someone who enjoys the ideas of body modification and mixing and matching things to become something else, being a bartender at least has some thematic connections there. This is also true for another job that Zooble had apparently, which was a tattoo artist. This was brought up when talking about art, with Gangle being the main artist in the group. But it makes sense that Zooble would be into tattoo art specifically. This would reflect their customizable toy theme, being able to change and decorate what you don't like about yourself, though as we learned before, changing Zooble's outside didn't always help them feel better on the inside. Zooble's therapy session with Kane ended up being more about Kane's wants and needs, as Zooble said in the episode, but when putting Kane's issues aside, we do get a glimpse into what is really going on in the mind of Zooble. Here, Zooble expressed discomfort, particularly with their body, but it's not just their body, it's their life as a whole, and that probably started even before entering the Digital Circus. With the characters putting on headsets and becoming trapped there, I imagine that Zooble likely wanted to play the game because of the same customization that they now hate. It's normal for people to enjoy customizing themselves in video games, but people with alternative identities or who see themselves outside of the mainstream ideas of norm like a gender binary tend to find themselves more drawn to this place because of the experimentation it allows for customizing themselves and seeing who else they could be. Despite how helpful and healthy this can be for any person, there also comes a point, however, where that symbolic form you take no longer represents you and causes issues because of how limited it can be. You might not grow tired of yourself, but you can grow tired of the world or fandom that surrounds this avatar. Over time, you can change your avatar as you change inside, but eventually the entire identity can become just outdated, no longer representing who you are because there is only so much the outside of a person can say about their inside. In the last moments we hear about Zooble's backstory, they mentioned that they used to explore abandoned buildings here and there as well. Not for videos or a career or an ongoing hobby, just something that they did once in a while. But like with Pomni, that means they likely came across the Digital Circus game when trying to explore an abandoned building and ended up wanting to try it. Ultimately, Zooble got some sort of weird monkey's paw kind of wish fulfillment here, where Zooble is now fully customizable and not trapped in the original body that they had issues with, but now the issue is just with who they are.
Okay.
Part 3, Ragatha. Now, another character that had some really interesting reveals, or rather confirmations, was Ragatha. In many ways, to me at least, Ragatha feels like the main character, even though Pomni clearly fills that role. Ragatha is just the one that everyone seems to want to know the backstory for because of her unique position in the game. The show has really built itself up around the idea that Ragatha is held to a higher standard than everyone else in the circus, a standard she even holds herself to. But as we got confirmed in this episode, it was unfortunately for very toxic reasons. In this episode, Ragatha confirmed what she had been hinting at in previous episodes, especially when she got hit by the stupid sauce. After that happened, she made comments about missing her horses, but also about tea parties and dancing lessons. That line had some layers to it, since it was also a reference to the Raggedy Ann and Andy movie, where Raggedy Andy complains precisely about those things when singing about how it sucks to be a boy's toy owned by a girl. We explored this in our previous dedicated video on Ragatha being Raggedy Ann, link down below if you haven't seen it yourself, but it seems clearer now that she was also talking about her real life in that line, as well as in other scenes that I didn't really notice until this episode. You see, in episode 5, Ragatha explains that she grew up in a wealthy family, but also on a farm, a kind of high-end country girl upbringing, but one with a lot of responsibilities. Ragatha openly admits that her mother was rather toxic and controlling here, and that explains a lot about her character. According to Ragatha, her mother probably doesn't miss her, and she says that she doesn't miss the yelling or berating or the guilt tripping, before suddenly realizing that the others are staring at her awkwardly. This episode really explored the idea that Ragatha is held to a different standard than the others, with Pomni even trying to get Ragatha to open up and be a jerk for once, but then immediately telling her to calm down when she actually starts expressing her emotions. Even worse, this is her expressing her emotions at Jax, who is constantly antagonizing her and everyone else. That's the pattern that Ragatha describes with her mother, with Ragatha emphasizing guilt tripping. It's not that Pomni is guilt-tripping Ragatha, but guilt itself is what controls her. When others look at her like she's out of place, she feels out of place, like she did something wrong. She feels guilty even if all she did was open up, or even really just stand up for herself. What's sad is that Ragatha starts by saying her mom probably doesn't miss her, which is already very hard to hear. But instead of saying she doesn't miss her mom, she just lists the bad things that her mom would do, saying she doesn't miss the berating or the guilt-tripping, but not saying that she doesn't miss her mom. This is a sad relationship, as it's basically her saying that her mom probably doesn't miss her, but that she does miss her mom, or at least the opportunity she had to try and have a good relationship with her. She doesn't feel loved by her mom, even if her mom wasn't checking in for that. This is something Ragatha hinted at in the earlier episode when she was on Stupid Sauce as well, when talking to the Gloinks Queen. During this conversation, Ragatha asks if all the Gloinks have names, and the Gloink Queen insists that she's a great mom who cherishes each of her children. Thus, they each have their own unique names. After hearing that, Ragatha says that that's beautiful. And with what we now know about her mom, that moment is actually really sad, as she really seems to just be sitting there thinking that she wished her mother was that way as well. Finally, while Ragatha wasn't an urban explorer, she did have
I like how future episodes help the impact of certain moments of past episodes.
Some hint of how she ended up in the game. Ragatha very explicitly says that she got into real...
I will be rewatching this entire series when it's over, by the way. I'm going to do a reaction of all the episodes when they're available and whatnot. And try just like I did with Murder Drones. And I loved rewatching Murder Drones from the very beginning to catch little things I missed that were referenced and or were easier to spot because of future episodes and stuff like that.
Estate before ending
I don't doubt
the
they're
game.
doing the same
and
thing
like
with
Pomni
this.
and Zooble, I think that led to Ragatha being in this abandoned building. Her job was likely just to survey the property and list it to sell or rent, but like with the others, she probably found the video game, tried on the headset, and ended up trapped there like
shit,
everyone
yeah,
else.
that would make sense.
Part 4, Gangle. Now, when it comes to the other characters, there wasn't a lot to learn that hadn't already been shared in previous episodes. Like Kinger with his wife back in episode 3, or Gangle at the fast food adventure in episode 4. That episode was basically Gangle focused, where we learned the most about her. How she had wanted to be an artist,
Gangle
but ended up working as a manager
already had
at a
their
fast food joint
episode
to appease her
focus-wise.
This new episode took
true.
that story a step further and explained that Gangle even went to community college for graphic design before dropping out. If I had to guess, Gangle simply didn't care for corporate graphic art, something that can be just as soul-sucking as working at a fast food restaurant with the right kind of artist. What Gangle seems to love about art is that it's fantasy, and making logos for corporations or just art that pushes their agenda isn't something that's going to be very fantasy fulfilling. After the fast food adventure, the only adventure Gangle seemed to suggest for episode 5 was a 2D anime slice of life story, keeping in line with Gangle's art style, which is predominantly anime or manga themed. I have to say, this was one of my favorite parts of the episode, and I'm not surprised they eventually did.
It was such a what the fuck
Did a whole scene like this, as the fans seem to love it when the characters get 2D, and especially anime. The little end credit animations they have of the characters running in a 2D art style is absolutely adorable, and I think if Glitch is smart,
they've had
they
that
should
from the
probably
very
continue
beginning.
the show after season 1 in a 2D format with funny shorts. Well, they could continue to use 3D for these. There's just something about the 2D art style that works so much better when the characters aren't being dramatic, I think. And I could see them selling Digital Circus merch for years and years with a monthly little short that's just a few minutes of the characters being funny in this 2D style. As for how Gangle ended up in the circus, this is an
depends on how the show ends and stuff, because we're only the Gooseworks has said this is only going to be one season, and that is it.
explored in the show directly, but I still like the theory I have.
But I guess if this show has like an ending where maybe they could do shorts like in between what happened in between episodes, like shorts like that, that'd be cool.
Back when episode 4 aired. The theory that Gangle had been hit by a truck on
Kind of like what Hell of a Boss is doing with Hell of Shorts, which I think I don't know if this is true or not. I've been hearing that there might be a new Hell of a Short sometime in the next couple weeks to a month or so. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm looking out for it.
on the way home from work, just as seems to happen in the game before she's saved by Kane. This wouldn't magically put Gangle in the game, but instead, I theorize that whoever is keeping the video game running might have used it as a way to give Gangle something of a second life, especially if she had been paralyzed or put into a coma because of the accident. This is extremely speculative, and a lot of people disagree with this theory, saying it's just a reference to the anime trope called isekai, but I still feel like a reference doesn't stop it from also being true. Part 5, Jax and Kinger. Finally, with Jax and Kinger, we didn't get any overt backstory about their lives before the circus.
Yeah.
Kinger is notorious for having no memory, and he plays that up in this episode, with Pomni just reminding the gang, and thus the audience, that he does have a backstory involving his wife.
He's, my wife?
Jax, meanwhile, just lies and pretends to be Walter White from Breaking Bad, claiming that he got
Hey! Somebody up. Okay, so in the first video, he didn't get the reference, but people probably let him know about the reference, and yeah, okay.
lung cancer and started working with one of his former students before Zooble shuts him down. We know Kinger had a history with a wife who entered the game with him, and the big theory is that he might actually be one of the people who created the game. There are some theories that he was meant to fix the bugs in the game by entering it himself, but but never did, with him and his wife slowly corrupting over time. Jax, meanwhile, doesn't have any evidence of a backstory before the game, leading many to think that he might be an NPC. Some fans think he has forgotten that he is an NPC, perhaps explaining why Cain can control and change Jax, despite Jax saying that Cain isn't supposed to have that ability. The only backstory we get for Jax in this episode is that he did seem to have a friend in the game with him. We don't know if it was someone from before the circus or someone he met in the game, but they seem to be the only person that actually liked Jax before the character appears to have abstracted. This former character is named Ribbit, it seems, and according to Gooseworks, Ribbit was the last character to abstract before Kaufmo, making the loss of Ribbit rather recent for Jax. But for more theories on what exactly happened with Ribbit and Jax, I made a dedicated video that's 16 minutes long for his character alone. So go check out our previous video on the episode where we get into that. And if you have more Digital Circus theories you want me to tackle this week, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time.
Alright, well, if you guys want me to check out some more Digital Circus theories, dissecting videos, all that kind of stuff, let me know what I should check out next down below. Share off my reaction, all that good stuff, and I'll try to tackle some more soon. Hope you guys enjoyed this reaction. I'll see you guys next time. Till then, later!
There's a name that shines bright, bringing joy to the night. Steven's killer, he's the king of the screen. With his epic playthroughs, he ranks as a meme. Laughing out loud as we watch him explore. From horror to laughter, we can't help but want more. With a heart full of passion, he shares his delight. Steven's killer, take us on another wild